This is my solution process for the bar chart. I'll focus much more on the process itself rather than the actual solution. My plan that I always start with, I never write it down like this is for the benefit of you, the viewers, but the first point is read the assignment thoroughly. Then I'm going to begin with the end. That means building HTML and CSS for the final display and try and modify it manually so I know what the code should do when it runs. Then I'm going to draw a call graph. I also sometimes write pseudocode. This time I'm going to draw a graph. And then I'm going to code the outlines of that call graph and get the main idea of the program working. I'm going to fill in all the details. That's going to be a very iterative process. And then the exercise will be kind of done. But usually I then fiddle with the finishing touches, adding a bit of coolness to the code. So let's start. Read the assignment. So here is the assignment for the exercise bar chart. We want an animated bar chart that collects new data every so often and displays a bar chart with the history of the last 40 data samples. It might look something like this: 40 bars, where one shows up at the end and then gradually moves to the left. This is just a tech demo, so we won't use actual data, just random numbers. Okay, so I have to add random numbers. Build code that creates an array of 40 data points, then loops with some sort of time delay, and on every loop scroll the data array and add a new data point at the end. Okay, that's kind of a hint on how I should solve this. So this would be an array of data where I would remove the first one and add a last one. That's a nice hint to have. And then it says write pseudocode, use functions for everything, and remember when to use function loops and when to use ordinary for loops. That's good sound programming, so I'll go with that. Then there are some hints I don't have to follow that could help. I'm not going to read them right now, just start with HTML, and that means begin with the end, and I'm going to do that. So let's begin with the end. Beginning with the end means writing the HTML and CSS for the final result, so let's go into our editor and get started. I already had the Scroller project open here in the editor, so I can go there and look for some quick inspiration should I need it. But I'm going to create a new folder in my exercises folder here. Create a new folder, call it bar chart. And for some reason I made it the wrong way, so I'm going to move it there. And inside bar chart I need index HTML. I need styles CSS. And I'm going to need a script.js file. In the index HTML, it's going to be a plain HTML file from the beginning, bar charts, and I'm just going to include the CSS right away. And while I'm at it, why not include the script as well? So now we're ready. I want 40 bars, and I also want to put them in a div called bars. So I'm creating a div with the class. Now I'm going to use the index bars, and inside that div I'm going to put 40 divs with the class of bar, like this. Yes, now we should get going. And I'm going to style them. The bars, they're going to be next to each other, so I'll display flex, and that should be okay. And then for each bar, not bars, but each bar, it's going to have a color, background color. I'm just using an orange, and I'm giving it a nice border, 1 pixel, black solid, and I'm going to give it a bit of a margin to the next one at the right. Now a bit of margin before of 1 pixel. this should give me some bars. Let's go and look at the live server and see how it looks. There they are. They're very, very tiny because they don't have either height or width. So let's give each of them a width. Let's say there are 40 of them and they should fill out completely, so they should like make 1/40th of 100%. I'm going to use the calc. So 100% divided by 40, that's the width. And I'm going to give them a height of 100 pixels. So how does that look? That looks kind of okay. I have 40 bars here. Now I'm just going to change one of them, see if I can. If in my inspector, can I change this bar by giving it a style of another height, say 50? No, that doesn't work. Why doesn't that work? Invalid property, I need 50 pixels. That was what it reminded me. Oh, I just have to feed the cat. Okay, now I'm back. And I can see how it moved up. They should all be down here. So in my bars, I'm going to make sure that we align all items at the bottom. Now I'm ready. So now my JavaScript just has to set the height, and I have to remember the pixel value. So now I'm ready to draw my call graph. I already know that I need an init and a loop. An init that sets up the bars and a loop that adds a new value at the right and removes the worst one from the left and calls itself. In the init, I'm going to build the data array with the first 40 pieces of data, so we have something on the screen. In the loop, I'm going to scroll the data, and I'm going to get new data to add at the very end. This one will create the random data. And then I realize I have this function for adding new random data. I should use that for building the first data array, so I only create new data one place. So I'm going to add it here. And then when I showed this in class, some of you realized that scrolling the data array would only scroll if it also added new data. So I really have to get new data when scrolling and not after. So I'm going to remove that call and call get new data from inside scrolling data. This will work. This will create a data array, and with the random data in the loop, it will scroll it, add new data, throw the leftmost out, and it will work. I could console log this data array and everything would work. So this is the data part, or the model part of the code. Then I'm going to look at the view part, because inside the loop I'm also going to display the data array, that is, set the heights of all the bars. And since this is a function for setting all of them, I wanted to for each and call a function display data bar that sets the height of a single one. So this is my call graph. I'm going to outline that in the code now. I usually keep my paper on my desk next to the computer, but I've placed it here on the screen so you can see it. In the code, I'll just start writing, simply creating every single function and leaving them empty for the moment. And the order of the function isn't really important here, but I'll kind of follow the flow, kind of. Now that I have every function, I'll get started making the init and loop, just making it run without doing anything, just to see if my code works. So I'll make sure that it starts. And just to debug it, I'll console log the name of the function I could do that on every single function, but I'll quickly get tired of filling the console, so I'll only do it on the init and loop for the moment. And then the final one is loop the loop, where it calls itself with a timeout. And I just realized I forgot to actually start the loop, so I'll do that here. Just loop it. So now my program should write in the console init and then loop, loop, loop every half second. So let's test if that works. I save and go to the browser, and in the console there's an init and then loop pretty much every half second. Very good. That was the code outline. Now I can get started filling in the details. For filling in the details, I'll start with this bit of the code that only handles the data. And when that is complete, I'll look into how to display the data. So my program would work with just data in the console. The first thing I need is somewhere to store the data, so I'll create an array outside all the functions so they can all access it. I'll call it data array. And I don't think I have to make it into a let, but I'll start with a const and then I can always change it. In init, I'm going to call build data array, and that should put stuff in the data array. And let's just see, how can I fill the data array here with 40 values? Well, I'm going to use a for loop that goes from 0 to almost 40. And I can push something to my data array. I can always push even though it's a const. And right now I don't know what I should push, so I just push the number 52. That's a random number. And if I do this, I should be able to, up here, console log the data array, and in the console I should see an array of 40 value 52. So let's check that out. Yes, the array is 40 and all the values are 52. Good. But I really want the value to come from get new data. So if get new data would have a value, say it have a value, let's just say a random value 33, and return that, then I could push that into the data array. I can do just that, get new data, call the function, and that should give me 40 33s. Let's check that out. Yes, it works. Okay, but this won't work. This won't work with the scrolling because I can't see if 133 gets replaced by another. So I really need a random value. And I've looked up how to create random values. You write mat.random and multiply it by the largest number you want. I want a random value between 0 and 100. So this gives me an array of extremely random values with lots and lots of digits. So we have this part completed. Now in the loop I need to call scroll data array. Oh, I forgot to erase that one on my drawing. It's not there. Okay, loop scroll data array. And in scroll data array, I'm going to remove first data, add, and then add new data at the end. And I remove something with, I seem to remember it's shift, and I can actually see what does it do. Removes the first element from an array and returns it. Yeah, but I don't need the return value, so I'll just throw it out. And then add some new data array, push, and this would be the exact same line as here, get new data. And this should give me an array of scrolling data. But I can't see it because I only output it here at the beginning. I don't want to do that. I want to output it every time I've scrolled. So it seems to be scrolling. It's very hard to follow, but it looks like it. At least the values are different. Yeah, that kind of scrolling. Yeah, good. That's good. So I solved the big part. I can scroll values and I can add new data to the array. Now I just need the display part so that I can actually see something happening in the web page itself and not in the console. So I'll start by calling the display data array function from inside the loop, and then I have to make a decision. Should I try to display one data bar at a time or then do them all? I'll do them all. So document query selector all should select all the bars, every bar in bars. Yes. That should give me an array of divs. I'm going to for each over them. And for each of them, I'm calling the display data bar function down here. That then gets an element, that will be the div. And just to make sure it works, I'm console logging the element so that I can see it should be a div with class bar. Let us check it out. No, nothing happens. So why is that? Display data array gets called from inside the loop, and let's see. Let's just make sure it gets called. Display data. Yes, it does, but it doesn't work on this. Is it called something else? Is it that? Hashtag bar, speech bar. That one. Usual. Yes. Now I get a load of lots and lots of divs. Good. I'll just remove some of all these console logs. They confuse me. So I have an element. I should be able to set the height, the style, and I'll just try to set it to a fixed value of 38 pixels. And that should set everyone as only 38 pixels. Okay, but there shouldn't all be 38. I should have a value from my data array, some index, and then concatenate that with piece. And this index would be the same. This bar would be index 0, and this would be index 1 and index 2 and so on. So the index for the bar and the data would be the same. And I can actually get it, the index here when for eaching. So I should be able to, yes, it works. So I finished. I've done the data part and I've done the display part and everything runs. I'm certainly done with filling in the details, but I could make some finishing touches. I would like it to not be so choppy, but slide smoothly along. So I could, not for each bar, but for the bars inside here, this entire ID should slide smoothly to the left. So I'm going to make an animation. And this animation should
scroll it one bar width. So I think I'm going to say if I start at left, position left would be the width of one bar, that will be 100% divided by 40, and then it would move to left 0. This would only work if it's positioned relative or something like that. So I'm going to give it a relative position, and of course I need to give it a speed 0.4 seconds, and also it should be rather linear, and it should continue forever. Let's see how that looks. Well, it looks kind of awful. But if I could somehow time it so that the loop would only be called whenever the animation was done, then they could be like synchronized. And I can do that by going here to my script and say, okay, the loop should really run on, I need my document, query selector, and I need this pass and an event on every animation iteration. That means every time the animation here, this keyframes, every time it loops, every 0.4 seconds, I want to call my loop function. It should be exactly the same as with the timeout, the same time, but now it's just synced with the animation. So I don't need to start it, and I don't need to loop it with timeout. So how does that happen? It looks a lot better, except out here there's a bit missing, and out here there's actually a bit more. You can see it scrolls, and that's because now I'm scrolling this back and forth, and I really should crop it. So if I put it inside yet another div, yeah, let's say div IE container. Lack of a better word, container is always my go-to. Everything is inside that container. And if I then go and see, I just want to make sure I can see the outline of the container, so I'm using outline and 2 pixel dashed dark cyan. It's just so I can see something. See, it starts there, it ends there. If I could make the overflow, hide the overflow out here, that would be a bit better. So I could do that, say overflow hidden. It looks good out here, but it really doesn't look that as good over here. But maybe I could move it like a bit inside. So if I were to make the container on the bars themselves, maybe move all the bars. They are moving from some percent to 0 all the time. So I could give it, I think, a left margin, left of minus, and I'm not sure, 100 divided by 40, 2.5%. How would that look? Oh, perfect. So now I got the plug inside my box. And you can see if I turn off hiding the overflow, it flows outside on both sides. So just overflow hidden, does a lot of magic, makes everything look great. And then I can remove the outline. So I have a beautiful scrolling bar chart. Now I can finally commit with pride.